Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage 15 of the Vuelta a España 2025. Today's race looks like it could be one for the breakaway specialists, or it looks like it could be one for the sprinters if you went to bed last night. Because when we look at the profile, and we're talking about 167 kilometers, I'll call it 105 miles in length, but you look at the first half of the course. That's the important section if you're a pure sprinter like Jasper Philipsen from Alpecin de Koenig. Can you get over a 17-kilometer climb from kilometer 0? And then can you get over another 11-kilometer climb shortly thereafter? That's a category 2. Category 1 followed by category 2. They're going to summit with about 110, 105 kilometers to go. So when the cameras come on proper, when I'm sitting on the Chesterfield, that's where we're at, is about 105 kilometers to go. So I couldn't tell you what happened up the crucial first half of this stage, the first 2 climbs, because we're coming on 105 kilometers to go. What I can tell you is that the gap is up over 9 minutes. I can tell you that Viz Melissa bikes pulling on the front of the Peloton, but they're not pulling very hard, just 2 riders on the front. I can tell you that when we see Ayuso at the team car right there and he's talking to his director sportif, Machin, I can certainly tell you that Machin is not a dictatorship at UAE Team Emirates. I rode for this guy with Lamprey and with Sonia Duval, and I remember riding for Machin for Sonia Duval where we were at the Buffalo Bar and Grill. It's called Buffalo Grill is what it's really called, I think. But it's a restaurant in France while we're doing the Tour de France, and I wanted a hamburger, so Machin ordered me up a hamburger. Now I could tell you other stories because that was outside of the Tour de France, same time, July of the Tour de France, at the team hotel having dinner between stages. And then I can tell you later when I was riding for Lotto that I was passing Machin's car, flew by it, and heard something about, do I want some pizza? By the time I got to the end of the car bumper there of Machin's car, I hit the brakes, locked it up, went back there, and Machin reached over to the passenger seat, pulled out a slice of pizza, handed me some pizza while I was doing the Tour de France, and I was chomping down on some pizza. So for sure there's no dictatorship here for Ayuso. But when we start going up further and we start looking at the 2 riders in the breakaway, it's Jay Vine up there and Louis Vervaeke from Pseudo Quickstep. So that's UAE Team Emirates and Pseudo Quickstep. Jay Vine, you have got to be a knucklehead. Now, I don't know how you got up here, but what it sounds like from the commentators, because I didn't get to see it, but what it sounds like from the commentators, they went up over the second climb on today's stage, and then Jay Vine took off with Louis Vervaeke, and they grabbed themselves maximum KOM points. And now Jay Vine is throwing down. Now, this is a knucklehead move. Guys, you know I have not been happy about the 7 stage victories here at the Vuelta a España for UAE Team Emirates. Okay, I definitely liked Almeida's stage victory at Langaroo. I love the team individual time trial. I might throw you in for some bonuses, one other stage, but 7? That's just too much. Jay Vine going up the road right now, you gotta be a knucklehead. When we finally go back to the Peloton under 100 kilometers to go, now we start understanding why he doesn't have much of a chance, because as the time had been slipping up from about 1.5 minutes and it's getting up to 2 minutes, we start seeing Lidl Treks on the front. And we start seeing 45 riders in this group. And everyone's got multiple teammates, but nobody has more than Mads Pedersen. Because the sprinter, Mads Pedersen in the race leader's green jersey, he's in this front group. And there's really the only other pure sprinter in here is Lewis from Movistar. He's certainly got some speed. When we look at Jake Stewart from Premier Tech, we know he's got a little bit of speed too. But when we look at the front of the Peloton and you see Lidl Trek pulling with 2 guys, that's Gebrek Zabier up there and Barona up there pulling as the gap keeps increasing up to the 2 riders up front. Man, Jay Vine, you just don't have much of a chance. I mean, you got to have a whole lot of hope, and you are wasting a ton of energy because this could easily be a rest day right here for Jay Vine. And remember, they got one other teammate in there, Ivo Oliveira's in this group of 45 sitting on back there. But you could be resting on this stage, there's no doubt about it. And then you get the rest day tomorrow where, you know, if you go over to Machin, I'm sure he'll get you a burger too because it's not a dictatorship. But they're not listening to me. Jay Vine's a knucklehead, there's no doubt about it. Louis Vervaeke's up there drilling it with them, and they're extending the gap up to just about 3 minutes. We go into, let's call it about 65 kilometers to go. This is when Movistar throw a guy on the front because Lewis has 2 teammates with him. He's got Canal and he's got Romo up there. So Romo jumps on the front. We got 3 guys chasing because the gap got up to about 3 minutes. Next thing you know, as the gap started getting and not coming back down, getting up there and not coming back down, we start looking at Lidl Trek. They throw in 2 more riders. That's Ciccone and Julian Bernard. So you got 5 riders chasing 2 riders right now. They better throw in a lot of power on the pedals. But the gap starts dropping down dramatically. And then we come into about 56 kilometers to go. At this moment, you see the front of the peloton. Julian Bernard's up there, Cicconi's up there, Gabriel Xavier's up there, Verona's up there, and Romo's up there at the front of the peloton. But guess what? Mads Pedersen's at the back of the peloton. See him back there by the cars? Well, they're just going to roll into this forest area, and then you see this protester hiding in the bushes over there. He jumps out of the bushes as the peloton's coming up. Lidl Trek guys, and especially Movistar riders, are at this moment looking over and starting to point him out. Now, as he runs down off the embankment, there's a little bit of a gully there, and he can't make it across the gully, so he starts to trip. As he's starting to trip, Movistar riders are looking all over there, and there's been times when Lidl Trek riders been looking over there too, but now there's a policeman running across the road in front of the Lidl Trek riders. So of course they're going to start hitting the brakes as we see the protester just basically land flat onto the bike lane side of the road right there as the peloton's coming through. Peloton, it's the breakaway, but it's 45 guys, excuse me. As that's happening with the police coming through, running across the road, and with Lidl Trek just coming into the police guy, you know they're going to start to slow down. So Romo overlaps the wheel of Gabriel Xavier. He goes down hard on the ground. Now we take a look at Pseudo Quickstep. They had two riders right behind. I'll call it Jean Marco, that goes hard to the right side. And then the next Pseudo Quickstep rider goes straight into Romo. I'll call this Max Schachmann, but I'm not 100% sure. As Max Schachmann crashes, Romo's hitting the ground hard. The Spectator, like I said, he planted the protester. Good for you. I hope he knocks some teeth out. Now we go further back and we start looking at what's happening after the group of 45 riders pass by. And we're going to see that right away, Pseudo Quickstep rider gets up, he jumps on his bike, he takes off. Romo there's looking at his bike. We got the official right there coming up in the motorcycle trying to help him out, but Romo's kind of had it. He starts walking away from his bike. Then the medical crew here is running behind Romo trying to grab hold of him, but as the Stana cars pass by, he runs away from the medical guy, goes to the other side. Next thing you know, we see him back on a new bike as he's trying to get back up to the back of the peloton. It'll take him about 10 kilometers to get back up to the back. He gets a sling. Before you know it, he's flying right by his two teammates there, sprinter Lewis and Canal, going up the right side of the peloton. He's going to jump straight back on the front and start doing some work as the gap's down to about 10 minutes right now with Lidl Trek pulling on the front and with Romo back there doing strong pulls on the front. Now, they're coming into about 35 kilometers to go. It's a sprint line point competition, intermediate sprint. So we know Mads Pedersen in the race leader's green jersey, he wants maximum points, and there's two riders still up the road, Jay Vine and Louis Vervaki up there. They're holding about 1 minute and 30 seconds. We come into this, Lidl Trek riders are drilling it, but remember, after the sprint line point competition, if I take you back to the profile, what they didn't have and what I didn't tell you yet, besides those two climbs at the beginning of the stage, the one coming after the intermediate sprint is about 4 kilometers long, but it's not categorized. So as we come back to the sprint, we see the two riders up front go through for first and second. We're going to see Mads come through for third place intermediate sprint competition points. He'll come through. Then Lidl Trek still on the front, driving it as we're coming into this next 4 kilometer bit of a bump. It's more than a bump. It's about a climb. It's pretty solid. At the front, 3 Lidl Trek riders. When we start looking at the back, we see Verona's back there struggling at the back of the peloton, and it moves all the way over as we get the first attack here of the stage that we get to see on camera anyways. That's Michael Kwiatkowski. I'm sure there's a ton more attacks that we get to see on camera. This is the first one from the break. Kwiatkowski throws in the attack. As he does, we can look at the back of the peloton. Verona's getting dropped at the back of the peloton, so we'll go back up to the front. Now, once Kwiatkowski gets brought back, there's a little bit of hesitation. EF Education's at the front there. Mads Pedersen's all over the front, but he's losing some teammates because we're going to see the next attack from Santiago Buitrago. Buitrago throws in attack. Egan Bernal goes with him. Mads Pedersen's locked down. We got 3 riders going up the road. The gap is getting down to about 50 seconds a minute to the 2 riders up front. Now, as we go back and look at the back of the peloton, it's a big-time explosion at the back of the 45-rider group that I just called the peloton. At least 20 riders are getting dropped back there. 2 Lidl Trek riders, Cicconi's back there, and Julian Bernard. Those were the last 2 guys left for Mads Pedersen, and we still got about 32 kilometers, 33 kilometers to go. So as those guys are getting dropped off in that group of 20, we go up and try seeing what's happening up here, as we'll call it about a group of 10 riders. Bora Hansgrohe is starting to get some kind of work on the front with Giovanni Aliotte up there. As we see Bora Hansgrohe trying to hold it together, we're going to start getting ready for the next attack. It's coming from Burgos BH Maro. As Mario's throwing in attack, this group gets brought back, and then we see Vino Karaf from Astana, the sole rider up here. He's throwing in his attack, and as this is devastating the Peloton back there, it's all getting strung out. Everything's falling apart quickly. There's bodies all over the place, but everything's still kind of sort of attached at this moment. It gets brought back shortly afterwards, kind of sort of. As I said, there's splits in the group all over the place. We're talking about 40 plus riders going up this climb, with 3 going up the road and 2 more in front of them, with Jay Vine and Louis Vervaeke trying to hold off the group of Mads Pedersen, Santiago Buitrago, and Egan Bernal. We go back down and we see Eddie Dunbar, Jaco Alulas throwing in a vicious acceleration. Frigo is on his wheel. That's Premier Tech right there. As Frigo's on his wheel, Orluis, the sprinter, is on the wheel. Orluis Olar is there. Then we start looking at the next rider with Orluis. That's Magnus Sheffield from Ineos, but his teammate Egan Bernal's up the road. Mads Pedersen's been thrown down up the road for sure. Egan's been putting in some pulls. Santiago Buitrago's been pulling up there too, but they're only holding about a 5-7 second gap. Then we start to look as Frigo gets on the front of this group of 4 or 5 riders right now. 5, excuse me. Frigo's on the front. He's driving it. Then as they're coming around, Orluis is going to throw an acceleration. The post-picnic rider's going to drop off. Orluis is going to close the gap with Eddie Dunbar, Magnus Sheffield on his wheel. But look at Frigo. Frigo's paying for being on the front. He's swinging back there, drifting off the back, and then he's going to close himself up. Now we got 7 riders in the front. Everything in the back is blowing up. Guys' legs are hurting all over the place, but they're still holding at about a 7-10 second gap as we see Mads Pedersen and especially Santiago Buitrago right now in the picture drilling it down these rollers. Now guys, the pain and suffering didn't end just because of this 4-kilometer softer climb right here near the end of today's stage 15, because now they're going into rollers. So we go up and look at Jay Vine. That's called a knucklehead. They've wasted too much energy. Jay Vine is throwing everything into it. Louis Vervaeke, Pseudo Quickstep's doing the same thing. Huge pulls, trying to hold off the Mads Pedersen, Egan Bernal group behind of 7 riders. Now we still got the group that I'll call the Peloton behind them, but we come into about 26 kilometers ago and we go back and look at the actual Peloton. Bahrain Victorious is getting on the front now because they're worried about the general classification of Torsten Trayen, because Billy Lesurf was up in this group of 45 at about 18 minutes on the general classification, but the time gap has ballooned out to about 13-14 minutes, so Bahrain Victorious is driving it on the front. Now, don't worry about the Peloton. That's how they're going to come in and finish today's stage. Let's go back up and start looking at these front riders of 7 as Mads Pedersen's working on the front. He's not getting quite the chemistry that he needs with about 18 kilometers to go and 25-30 seconds to the 2 riders up front, but eventually they'll start rotating through. Now you have to start rotating through, or you have to jump Mads Pedersen and Orluis and get rid of sprinters if you don't have any kind of sprinting legs. But we see there's a little bit of chemistry for a moment here. We start going into about 15 kilometers to go, and the gap's at 20 seconds with Mads Pedersen still drilling it on the front, but again, getting some occasional help from the other 6 riders that are sitting on his wheel. We'll go into 10 kilometers to go. The gap up to the 2 leaders is now at 2 seconds as Louis Vervaeke and Jay Vine are still trying to hold off the group. But we go back and look at the big group. This is important at this big group. What's left of about 40 riders back there. Lidl Trek still have 2 riders. And if I back up the film a little bit, you can see where Ciccone and Julian Bernard were covering attacks that were going up the road. But at 10 kilometers to go, the gap's at about 35 seconds to the group of 7 and 45 seconds to the group of 2 up front. So at this moment, as the gap's down to 10 seconds, you got to start asking yourself, is it time to start attacking Mads Pedersen and Orluis right now? Or are you going to keep rotating? Well, they still softly rotate through with Mads Pedersen, and at 7 kilometers to go, they wrap up the 2 riders in front. Now we got 9 riders in front. Rider 8, Egan Bernal, throws in attack 6.5, 6.8 kilometers ago, is almost immediately. As the Colombian rider from Ineos throws in his attack, it's the Colombian rider Santiago Buitrago that's covering it behind with Mads Pedersen locked on his wheel. You do not want to cover any attack going up the road if you don't have sprinter legs. You want to let the non-sprinters go up the road, and you want Mads Pedersen or Lewis to have to do some work back there. But Santiago Buitrago saw it a little bit late, then he looked back over his shoulder, realized Mads Pedersen Pedersen's locked on his wheel. So he pulls over to the side because a Colombian on Colombian battle right now while we're at the Tour of Spain. It's not going to look very good for the fans at home in Colombia checking this out as we see Santiago Buitrago wised up. He moved over. Mads Pedersen had to close the gap. Now we get a little bit more chemistry unrest happening as Mads Pedersen's at the front and he's looking back over his shoulder, but guys won't come through exactly. Then they start rotating through. Guys, multiple people start rotating through, multiple riders. I saw Magnus Sheffield rotating through. Egan Bernal was rotating through. Or Lewis was rotating through, but he's a sprinter, so I won't blame him. But everyone else is a knucklehead besides Jay Vine. Jay Vine was sitting on the back, and Jay Vine's got some tactical smarts right now, but he was a knucklehead all the way up to 7 kilometers to go. So now they just flip roles. He knows he can sit on because he's got to attack if he wants to win the stage, or he can sit on and have Ivo Oliveira that's in that back group back there that's got a little bit of speed. Possibly he can win the stage. Now, Mads Pedersen has to think wisely at this moment when guys are trying to abuse him and put him on the front because he's still got 2 teammates in the back. Granted, the group back there's probably at about 40 seconds now, but he's got 2 teammates. So you have to be careful with how you use your energy. At any moment when he's going and pulling on the front, you got to remember, you have to save some legs to win the sprint, and you have to save some legs to be able to cover some attacks. Otherwise, you could ease up, have the group come back to you, put your 2 teammates on the front. But once we get into 4 kilometers to go, that's a big, tall order because we're coming into the final town here to finish out today's stage 15 with the right bend. As we're coming into this town, we're going to see Mads Pedersen control as we're going through the roundabouts. And then we come into 2.2 kilometers to go. There's a turn there, it exits with a little bit of bump. And to my surprise, Mads Pedersen's throwing an attack. Okay, as he throws an attack, it gets brought back. Everyone's got good enough legs. You got to start asking yourself, Mads Pedersen, was that an intelligent move? I know everyone wasn't working exactly in harmony back there, but if you're a sprinter, this really was kind of harmony for Mads Pedersen. He got most of these guys to rotate through with the exception of Jay Vine back there. So when I saw this attack, I was like, ooh, I don't know if I like this attack. But we're coming in now to about 1.7, and we see Mads Pedersen on the front. He's looking over left. Then we're getting attack on the right side. The rider on the right side is Louis Verbaki. He's been in the break all day long, but he wants a shot at winning today's stage 15 too. So he's going up the right. As Mads was looking left, he's drifting over to the right, and that's going to slow up the attack there of Louis Verbaki, and so that gets brought back. Then the next attack is the Hail Mary. Jay Vine is throwing in his attack, but it gets brought back right away because Mads Pedersen's all over that, and we'll see multiple other riders sitting on the back wheel there of Mads Pedersen as he brings it in. Now, we're coming into about 1 kilometer to go. Mads Pedersen still on the front of the peloton. This is what you got to do. Everyone knows he's the 5-star favorite to win today's stage, even when you went to bed last night. Now we're coming into 1K to go. Mads Pedersen's on the front. He's still coming into 900 meters to go as he's looking over his shoulder. Now we come into 750 meters to go. We got the first of the corners to come up, and as we exit out of this, Mads Pedersen's still on the front, but with 500 meters to go, Marco Frigo, Premier Tech, throws in his attack. Mads Pedersen follows it directly. We got one more corner coming up with about 300 meters to go. When we look behind Mads Pedersen, that's Magnus Sheffield, Ineos, the young American kid there. And then it's Orlewis sitting in 4th place with Egan Bernal just behind that. As Frigo's diving, coming up to this right turn. That's the last right turn in today's stage 15. Frigo's coming into it. He's leading. Mads Pedersen sitting second. If I back it up just a hair, Orlewis was behind Magnus Sheffield, but he accelerated up the inside on the right side of Magnus Sheffield. So he's coming up fast to the back wheel there of Mads Pedersen, but a little bit too much on the inside. We start diving through the corner with Frigo first, Mads Pedersen second, and Magnus Sheffield on the outside, who looks like he got pushed a little bit wide, and then he loses the front wheel. I don't know if it was the paint strip. I don't believe it was. I think it was just a bit of a panic here as Orlewis from Movistar coming up the inside. It pushed, or it kept Magnus Sheffield to the outside. Maybe he grabbed too much brake. I can't tell you for sure. We're going to have to ask Magnus Sheffield for the exact reasons of why he crashed right here going through the last and final bend here of stage 15. But he goes down. As Frigo's leading out, though, we're going to look at Mads Pedersen sitting second on his wheel. We look back and take it from the overhead shot one more time, and we see the hard brake in there for Orlewis as he came in through the inside. So as they're Next in with Frigo going full gas, Mads Pedersen, of course, getting ready to start his sprint. He's going to slingshot up with about 175 meters to go. Come around the outside on the left as there's a little bit of bend coming into the finish of today's stage 15. Mads Pedersen's taking the lead. Or Lewis is flying around Frigo on the outside still too, but Mads Pedersen clearly looks like he's going to win today's stage, because with 75 meters to go, when Lewis passed Frigo, Mads Pedersen already has a gap, so he's sitting up at 25 meters to go, looking back over his shoulder, and the rider from Lidl Trek across the line with both arms punching up in the air as Lidl Trek finally wrap up their first stage victory here at the Vuelta a España after 15 stages. Fantastic ride from Mads Pedersen controlling the group. Now we look back second on the stage. That, of course, is Luis Olar there from Movistar. Third on the stage would be Frigo, who led out of the last corner. And the last rider of this group of 9, Magnus Sheffield, the young American kid, picked up his bike. As we go back and look, his chain was off. He picked it up, put it on, finished just in time of the group behind him, of that original group of 45 that crossed the line. Peloton doesn't cross the line until about 13 minutes later. But the race leader's red jersey, of course, still stays on the shoulders of Jonas Vingegaard before they go into the second rest day here at the Vuelta a España. So like and subscribe, guys. I'll see you for the second rest day on Beyond the Coverage real soon. So hope you enjoyed today's stage and hope you enjoyed the coverage. Hit the like and subscribe button. See you real soon.